This week on For the Record, Planned Parenthood of Wisconsin putting a pause on abortions.
This federal policy has put Planned Parenthood in this untenable position.
Why it's happening and what Wisconsin's Attorney General is doing about it. Plus,
we can do better. We need good leadership. I believe I can provide it.
After months of speculation, the biggest name yet enters the race for Wisconsin's next governor.
The whole woke nonsense that we have seen that has taken over some states, it ends day one.
We sit down one-on-one with Republican Congressman Tom Tiffany.
It's going to put legitimate businesses out of order.
And Republican state lawmakers are looking to weed out the THC loophole. What products could be on the chopping block. And later, we sit down with Middleton's mayor as she launches her bid for re-election.
I'm so excited to be running again.
That's all coming up this morning.
We now present For the Record.
Welcome to For the Record. I'm Elly Laliberte. Well, in just 3 days, Planned Parenthood of Wisconsin will pause abortions. It comes after President Trump's package of spending cuts, which includes a provision to defund the organization. In a statement, the Planned Parenthood of Wisconsin CEO writes, quote, "Our commitment is unwavering. Planned Parenthood of Wisconsin will continue to provide the full spectrum of reproductive health care, including abortion, as soon as we are able to. In the meantime, we are pursuing every available option through courts, through operations, and through civic engagement." In response, Wisconsin's Attorney General Josh Kaul is calling for a court order to stop the law. That's after previously suing the Trump administration for blocking Medicaid funding to Planned Parenthood.
We will see how the court rules on that ultimately. That'll be a legal decision from the courts. But again, there's a simple way to address this issue, which is for Congress to take action. So I encourage members of Congress in Wisconsin to address this issue to ensure that Planned Parenthood isn't left to choose between providing critical reproductive health care services or providing access to safe and legal abortion.
Now, this isn't the first time Planned Parenthood has stopped abortion services. In 2022, the Supreme Court overturned Roe v. Wade, returning abortion law to the states. In Wisconsin, that triggered a law predating the Civil War. Abortions were unavailable for 15 months. This year, the state Supreme Court decided that the law from 1894 does not ban abortion. But some are seeing the October 1st pause as a win. The president of the Wisconsin Family Action, an organization that promotes conservative Christian family values, told me he was surprised but pleased with the pause.
We don't know how long this is going to last, but our hope is that we would see Planned Parenthood completely go away from abortion. And so I think this is a great news for the unborn. I think it's a great news for families across the state. But our hope is that Planned Parenthood would decide as a result of this to no longer provide abortions in the state of Wisconsin.
But on the other side, Democratic state senator and gubernatorial candidate Kelder Roy's criticizing the Trump administration's move, releasing a statement reading in part, quote, "Having a child is one of the most personal, private decisions a person can make, and politicians have no business making those decisions for people ever." Now, surrounding states like Illinois, Minnesota, and Michigan have more accessible abortion services. And with Wisconsin's announcement, Planned Parenthood in Illinois is preparing for an influx in clients.
Together, we are preparing to face the fallout from a backdoor abortion ban implemented by the President of the United States, a ban that once again rips away care in Wisconsin, my home state. Wisconsin is where my family lives, where much of my community is, and where I myself had an abortion I desperately needed at the age of 16. This news, like so much of the news, is not just political, it is deeply personal.
This law only impacts Planned Parenthood, not other reproductive health care providers. This is also as the FDA is reviewing evidence about the safety and efficacy of the commonly used abortion drug mifepristone. U.S. Health and Human Services Secretary Robert F. Kennedy Jr. and the FDA commissioner revealed that in a letter to nearly 24 attorneys general. The letter is a driving concern among abortion advocates that the federal government may put new limits on access to medication abortion, which has been more broadly available through telehealth in recent years. And in an announcement Monday, President Trump says the FDA will be notifying physicians that taking Tylenol during pregnancy is associated with an increased risk of autism. He did not, however, bring scientific evidence with him to back up that claim. And medical experts say it's unproven. Kevin View, the makers of Tylenol, issued a statement saying that acetaminophen does not cause autism. We strongly disagree with any suggestion otherwise and are deeply concerned with the health risks this poses to expecting mothers. And to the state capitol, lawmakers on both sides of the aisle are working to make voting easier. Wednesday, Republican Representative Scott Krug and Democratic Representative Lee Snodgrass introduced an election bill package they say would allow for earlier processing of absentee ballots, increased voter education and awareness, and modernizing election infrastructure.
They want to know that the person who's voting next to them is who they say they are. They want to know that that person is eligible to vote, and they want to know who won the damn election before they go to bed. That credibility in our
Despite its bipartisan nature, the proposal has critics, particularly over drop boxes. Drop boxes have been a source of controversy in Wisconsin since the formerly conservative state Supreme Court banned their use in 2022, then reversed the ruling when its majority became liberal in 2024. Spreitzer released a statement that it reads in part, quote, "The bill introduced today by Rep. Krug continues down the path of Republicans proposing unreasonable trade-offs in an attempt to appease the most extreme members of their party. Wisconsinites deserve better than these political games and have their legislatures cater to the most extreme wings of their party." And a group of Republican lawmakers are looking to weed out what they call a THC loophole. The proposed legislation would essentially redefine what is legal hemp, a plant that's in the same family as marijuana. Now, if passed, the bill's lead author says the legislation could take hemp-based products off the market. That includes things like gummies, vapes, and drinks that can get the consumer high. But dispensary and lab owner Brooke Bartell says if passed, the legislation would handicap an entire industry.
I really want regulation. I don't want outright banning. Banning THCA outright isn't going to solve this problem. It's going to just force another black market surge.
But Representative Brill argues it's an industry that shouldn't have necessarily taken root in the first place.
This market was created because of a loophole, and that was a chance that businesses took when they opened their business.
Now, this legislation is still in the very beginning stages right now. It's just circulating for co-sponsorship. And when we come back, we sit down with the biggest name to enter the race for Wisconsin's governor, why Congressman Tom Tiffany says he's the man for the job. Welcome back to For the Record. Well, it feels like each week more and more candidates enter the race to become Wisconsin's next governor, and this week is no different. But after months of speculation, Republican Congressman Tom Tiffany put the rumors to rest. On Tuesday, he officially announced his candidacy.
I'm Tom Tiffany, and I'm running for governor because I love our state. I see where we are headed, and I know we can do better.
Now, a little background on Congressman Tiffany. He represents the 7th Congressional District in northern Wisconsin. He won a special election in 2020 after the resignation of Sean Duffy, who is now the Transportation Secretary. Now, Tiffany won that race by 14 points and has won re-election by more than 20 points in each of his 3 re-elections. In his campaign video, he listed priorities as protecting Wisconsin farmers, freezing property taxes, and keeping transgender students out of girls' sports. Here's what he told me during our conversation earlier this week. How do you plan to make those priorities into things we could actually see in Wisconsin?
Well, I think they're really common sense values, like boys not being in girls' sports or in girls' bathrooms. That's just common sense, and most Wisconsinites agree with that. We will implement that. And just the whole woke nonsense that we have seen that has taken over some states, it ends day one.
Now, Tiffany is also seen as a Trump loyalist, over the summer voting in favor of passing the president's spending and tax cuts. According to the Wisconsin Department of Health Services, more than 270,000 Wisconsinites will lose their health insurance because of it. What do you say to those Wisconsinites right now? 270,000
Wisconsinites are not going to lose that unless they're here illegally, or else they're working able-bodied, or the people that are able-bodied that should be working. Anyone that this program that was designed for, whether it's someone with a disability, pregnant moms, seniors that qualify for the program, they will not lose their coverage.
But I've talked to folks who can't work right now and are here legally who are at risk of losing their coverage. Folks like that, are there solutions? Are there ways that they can stay on coverage, or is this kind of a lost game for them?
If the program was set up for them and they qualify, then they should receive that coverage.
Now, Tiffany also continued to defend President Trump's tariffs plans.
We have lost so much manufacturing here over the last 30 years. I think about the paper mills and other businesses that have went out and moved overseas. It is time to defend manufacturing and bring it back to Wisconsin.
Now, Tiffany told me he's running his campaign for the general election with what he's calling a 72-county strategy. That includes Dane County, which he argues Republicans have ignored for too long. But Tiffany has his eye on one specific block of voters.
A group of people that I think are really going to turn out here in the future for Republicans, especially in light of the assassination of Charlie Kirk, is you're seeing a real movement on college campuses of young people who really gravitated to that message of faith and family and conservatism.
Now, Tiffany estimates he will need about $30 to $40 million to keep up with Democrat spending. You can hear how he plans to raise that and the congressman's thoughts on abortion in our full interview up right now on channel3000.com. And during a press availability earlier this week, fellow Congressman Mark Pocan also reacting to the announcement, saying he's eager to talk about Tiffany's voting record.
I think he would be a great nominee for the Republican Party. And I'd love to see the conversations we'll have about health care and food assistance and education funding coming out of what he voted for with the big ugly law. So I might send him $1 or $2.
However, Tiffany winning the endorsement of fellow Republican Congressman Tony Weed, writing in a statement, quote, "I can say with confidence that Tiffany is an America First leader who stands for law and order, believes in fiscal responsibility, and will never stop pushing against radical far-left policies. Wisconsin is in desperate need of strong leadership, and I firmly believe that Tom Tiffany is the right choice to lead our state." But it's not only Tiffany getting into the race this week. The Democratic field continuing to widen as former Wisconsin Representative Brett Hulsey entered the race.
I'm a Democratic candidate, announcing day a Democratic candidacy for governor of the state of Wisconsin. I've got a lot of my background here. I've been in public service since I was 19 years old.
Hulsey was previously a member of the Wisconsin State Assembly from 2011 to 2015 and served on the Dane County Board for 14 years. Now, speaking outside the Beacon Shelter in Madison on Wednesday, he focused on issues like homelessness, the environment, and school funding.
The people should not be homeless and hungry in the richest nation in the history of the world. That is just wrong. When I was up there in the legislature, I fought against the cuts of the radical extremists to cut our schools. We have schools doing referenda after referendum for operating expenses, not to build nice new schools, but just to keep the lights on. That is wrong. I don't pretend to have all the answers, but I know I can fix it.
Hulsey also opposed then-Governor Scott Walker's Act 10 when in the Assembly. He ran for governor 8 years, but lost in the primary to Mary Burke.
But I got 52,000 votes. I didn't spend much of my own money, and this time I'm more serious. My plan is to have a crew of homeless people canvassing.
But Hulsey is also followed by controversy. When in the Assembly, he was cited for disorderly conduct over, quote, horseplay and photographing a 9-year-old boy at a city beach. Also during that time, he was known for pulling stunts that angered his own party, including threatening to bring a musket onto the Assembly floor to call attention to GOP policies that he opposed, like legalizing carry concealed weapons. And in 2013, one of his legislative staffers told police she feared for her safety because he brought a box cutter to the office. Hulsey is also jumping into an already packed Democratic primary, as this is the first time in about 16 years the race has been open with no incumbent running. He joins Lieutenant Governor Sarah Rodriguez, Milwaukee County Executive David Crowley, Madison State Senator Kelda Roys, Madison Representative Francesca Hong, and beer vendor Ryan Sternad. Then on the other side of the ticket is obviously Congressman Tom Tiffany, but also Washington County Executive Josh Kaul wasn't on that list. Milwaukee businessman Bill Berrien dropped out of the race Friday after finding himself in the center of a scandal this week. The CEO, a conservative supporter of family values, followed several sexually explicit accounts online, including a non-binary pornography performer. Since the Milwaukee Journal Sentinel first reported on his online activity, Berrien unfollowed several of the accounts and called the reporting a, quote, garbage political hit. Now, in a press release, he wrote, quote, the media cherry-picked a handful of individuals and handwritten articles that came across my feed, what I thought I followed without the faintest clue as to the author's lifestyle choices 6 or 7 years ago, and painted a salacious and sensational picture that was clearly targeted to force me out of this governor race. One-on-one with Middleton's mayor as she launches her bid for re-election. Welcome back to For the Record. This week, Middleton Mayor Emily Kuhn launched her re-election bid, but before serving as mayor, she was on the Middleton City Council for 5 years. We sat down one-on-one with her to hear if her priorities are the same as the first time she ran. So first of all, thank you for joining us today.
You're welcome. Thanks for having me.
Do you want to make your first pitch to voters as they're hearing you run for your re-election?
Oh, I'm so excited to be running again. I am so proud of city staff for all that they've done, for all of our good neighbors who've come out and just been excited to attend events and support each other. One of the best things that I'm proud of is helping save 1,800 jobs and keeping our largest employer here in the state and working across party lines to get that passed in the TIF in the legislature.
And so last time you ran, one of your priorities was housing, especially affordable housing. Is that something you're still looking at for a second go around?
Absolutely. Next year we will be releasing over $5 million in affordable housing, possibly more due to our TIF closure. And in the meantime, we've added to the supplies. So part of affordability is to make sure that there are options up and down the price line, and to encourage our empty nesters to consider a smaller footprint so they can go do things like community events and traveling, but making room for those families trying to move in.
And so Dane County is expected to grow to about 900,000 residents by 2050. So growth is a really big issue here. How, as the city of Middleton, are you kind of forward-thinking, trying to keep up with that growth in housing?
It's a great question. We are trying to take a balanced approach. Previously, we focused a lot on density, and we still are supportive of density, but we're also trying to make more options in the market for that home buyer. And so we are taking that two-prong approach and making sure we are getting some apartments in, but leaning into those townhomes, single-family homes, and condos in that smaller housing footprint. The other thing we have to do is make sure that we have robust jobs and our businesses are supported to, have that growth and people working close to home, rather than putting people to the streets and adding to commute times.
And so kind of talking about transportation, that kind of goes hand in hand with growth. What are you doing to keep up with public transportation?
Oh, yeah. So one of the things I did, I wrote a housing survey because my background is in public policy and economic development, to ask how many people are driving, how many prefer walking, biking, taking mass transit. Mass transit's about 5% of our users, but when we did our survey about 2 years ago, it was a good third of our population was teleworkers some time of the week. So they actually are walking and biking to the grocery store or dropping their kids off. So we are trying to incorporate that to make those safe street crossings, because at the end of the day, if they're not taking their car, it's better for the environment.
And so I wanted to ask too, last year the city appointed a new chief of police. So what has been going well in the police department, and what are things that you would like to see work on?
Oh, they are doing such a great job. The new chief is taking that leadership role and embracing it. He is definitely bringing his team together. They were already a great team. And I just encourage them to do more community events, for which they were excited to do. They're doing great, and they're making sure those schools' safety corridors are protected. It's one of the things I'm working on as mayor for my budget this year, is to make sure our crossings are safe near those elementary schools, and getting our public works folks out there to make sure it's up to date, but also making sure our police are nearby and visible.
Wonderful. Well, thank you so much, Mayor, for sitting down with us. We appreciate your time.
Thank you so much.
That was Middleton Mayor Emily Kuhn sitting down with us. Now, the election will be April 7th of next year. Now let's move to Madison's mayor. This week, Mayor Satya Rhodes Conway announced $1 million from her operating budget will go to Madison's new homeless shelter. The shelter on Madison's east side is expected to be done in early 2026, but is facing funding issues to get it up and running. Combined with the funding drawn from the Community Development Division's existing budget, it would bring the city of Madison's contribution to the shelter operations for next year's budget to an unprecedented $1.7 million if approved by the Common Council.
We must unlock that potential. That means coming up with more than $4 million that it will take to operate this shelter 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, 365 days a year.
And for the record, we'll be right back after this. And before we let you go, this month is Hispanic Heritage Month. It runs from September 15th to October 15th. Now, the timing of the Hispanic Heritage Month aligns with the independence of anniversaries of several Latin American countries. It's a chance to reflect on the history and celebrate tradition, music, culture, and cuisine. The month traces back to 1968 when President Lyndon B. Johnson initiated Hispanic Heritage Week. The celebration was later extended to a full month in 1988. And next week, we're sitting down with the first candidate in the race to replace Wisconsin Supreme Court Justice Susan Crawford's seat on the Dane County Circuit Court. And a reminder, you can watch full episodes of the show as well as expanded interviews on our website, channel3000.com. That does it for us this week. Have a great rest of your weekend. For the record, I'm Elly Laliberte.
This has been For the Record.